Hi there. Welcome to Monetize Your Business podcast conversations in partnership with FNB. My name is Hetty, the entrepreneur, and I'm looking forward to today's podcast conversations. Today, we are bringing you yet another firecracker entrepreneur. Patricia Khomane is absolutely amazing within the accounting consultancy space, but we'll dive a little bit deeper into that. As always, you know how we do it over here. I'm not flying this plane on my own. I do have my co-pilot with me. Papa Biz, how are you today?
No, I'm good. I'm good. And I'm glad that we have a fellow numbers person who is here and that we can engage and share with the rest of our community and learn some more from.
Absolutely. Patricia, welcome to the conversation.
Thank you so much for having me here.
I'm so excited for today's conversation. You are an entrepreneur. You are a consultant. You are a pitch prize winner. You are just doing the things absolutely amazing. So I'm really looking forward to diving into the different facets of who you are. But before we do that, let's get to learn and know a little bit more about who Patricia is.
Okay.
Can you tell us a little bit about your upbringing? Where did you grow up? And then we can take it from there.
Okay, perfect. So my name is Patricia Khomane.
Yep.
I am the last born of 7 children.
Wow.
I know.
Okay. As you starting it.
Close to a football team.
Yo, okay.
We're a blended family,
Okay.
right? And the age gap between me and my siblings is quite huge.
Mm.
For example, the firstborn, we have like 12 years gap.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. When I was younger, I actually wanted to be a doctor.
Oh,
Okay.
really?
Yes. Until I saw blood. And my younger self was like, no, we have no intentions of seeing blood for the rest of our lives. You need to find something else.
Mm.
But as I was growing up, I grew up in Newville.
Okay.
And I went to girls' schools, both primary and high school.
Okay.
And in that, I loved numbers. But while I was preparing for today, one thing that actually came to my mind is I started budgeting when I was in primary school.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I just had no idea that what I was doing was budgeting.
Mm-hmm.
So when my uncles would come, and you know, when you've got your uncles and your aunties over, they'll be like, no, take this and buy yourself sweets. I would keep that money and buy myself clothes.
Mm-hmm.
Or I would allocate and say, okay, fine, I'm going to keep this portion for clothes, this portion for ice cream, this portion for sweets, right? So yeah, and fast forward, went to university at UJ. The goal was to be a CA. I went to university first year, everything was fine. Second year, I got more knowledge on taxation, and I was like, okay, this seems more interesting.
Yeah.
And I would jokingly say that I was married to accounting and tax was my side, my mistress.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how I found myself. Yeah.
That's interesting. I mean, even when you talk about what it was like for you younger, I mean, it actually reminds me myself as well. I used to, now we call it budgeting,
Yeah.
but I used to save.
Yeah.
Savvy, but so sometimes you see the other kids buying things and I'd save because I grew up for some time in a hostel,
Yeah.
boarding school.
Okay.
And then I'd save and always saved up for comic books.
Wow.
Comic books, all of the X-Men and all of that type of stuff.
Yeah.
So it's interesting how things, you go back when you look at, when one was younger and so on. So now, I mean, when you're looking at yourself in high school, how would you describe what you were like then?
I was the good girl in high school, but I was also very talkative. So I would be in trouble for talking, but nothing else. I remember I literally got demerit in detection for talking. So it was one of those things. But I was also very good with numbers, right? So I would be top 10 in maths, in EMS at that time. And yeah, it was a very interesting time. The other funny thing would be, and I guess that's where maybe the entrepreneur started. But once again, I didn't really consider it that way. I would sell poetry.
Sell poetry?
Yes, on Valentine's, because everybody wants to write something to their partners.
Oh, clever.
And then there'll be, Patricia, would you mind writing us a poem? We'll be like, yeah, I mean, it's money. Why not?
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
That's interesting because most people with numbers, it's not often that creative side in writing is also existing there. Where did that come from?
I was born with it. I would love to believe I was born with it because I started writing in primary school. I started writing lyrics. Right? I would write lyrics, I'll give them to my mom, and she would be like, oh, wow, this is actually pretty good. I'll try to sing and she'll be like, no, my child.
Okay, that part is not good.
And then it moved to poetry, and then it moved to articles.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that is interesting. Just that blend of the two, the numbers and the creative side.
Yeah.
That's quite unusual.
Yeah.
And that's quite awesome. Wow. Would you say with your selling of the poetry, that's where your entrepreneurial flair kind of began?
I think so. And I guess we do this all the time, but you actually don't realize you are following the breadcrumbs, right?
Yes.
I also bake, right? And then I'd sell cakes, but I didn't think of it as entrepreneurship, right? I published a journal and then I sold that journal, but I didn't think of it as entrepreneurship. It was just like those little things that you're doing until fast forward, even with how I became an entrepreneur officially. It wasn't really planned per se. I don't know if I can share the story.
No, sure. Go for it.
Okay. So,
Come on.
the first company that I worked for after articles, during probation, I was still doing probation. I traveled with the CFO. Then he asked me, what would you want to be in 5 years from now? And I remember the exact words that I said. I was like, well, I'm not sure if I should let you know this because you are my boss's boss and I'm still on probation. You might fire me, but I'd like to have my own company. All right. Then he was like, okay, fine. Stay here for those 5 years. Follow what the CEO is doing. Get close to her so that you learn how to manage a business. Stay close to me as the CFO so that you know how to manage the Department of Finance and just everything else that comes with that. After 4 and 5 years, I was like, I need to go somewhere, which I did.
Okay.
But I was only there for 9 months.
Oh,
right? Wow. And after those 9 months, immediately I started NPK Consultancy. When I looked back, it was literally the first month of year 6.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it wasn't even necessary that I had planned like, okay, fine, I'm going to start saving and getting clients and etc. It literally was, I guess, God just leading it the way.
The word becomes flesh.
Yeah.
You know, when you utter something, you somehow don't realize, but things just conspire in your favor.
Yeah.
And so it becomes.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. I love that. Tell us, what is NPK Consultancy?
So NPK Consultants, it's an accounting and taxation firm. We offer accounting and tax services to both individuals as well as businesses.
Okay.
For accounting, usually when people think of accounting, they think of bookkeeping, right? Just putting in the numbers that are capturing, but we like going further than that to actually interrogate those numbers.
Okay.
What are the numbers actually saying about your business, right? And how can that then improve you yourself as an individual and also improve your business? So we offer all aspects of the accounting element, the bookkeeping aspect. If you need a proper accountant to actually have even like consultation services and etc., you want to find ways to improve your business in that aspect, we do that. Management accounts, we provide management accounts. We prepare financial statements as well. We've got one where we call an advanced packaging, where you literally have consultation with us on a month-to-month basis. So now we're looking at your numbers. We've seen your numbers. This is where you are overspending. What's going on there, right? Or you might find that your expenses are fine, but the industry that you're in, you're supposed to be generating more income. So then what's the problem? So now those sessions, then we're interrogating the numbers, right? Then we've got the taxation part, where then we do the tax calculations, tax returns, deal with SARS, but then we also have the tax planning, right? Because if, for example, let's say you come to us at the end, there's really nothing much that I can do other than submit the tax return on your behalf, right? And tell you a way to improve going forward. But then if we're working with each other, then I can literally pick up, okay, fine, this transaction is very good for your business, but maybe consider doing it this way, so that then there's that tax benefit. So yeah, we mostly do that. I love saying that we're more than accountants, but we'd rather like business advisors. And we are working with you.
Oh, wow. I love that.
Now I'm wondering, I mean, what you've explained and the way you put it across now, it's quite summarized and like, you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
What was the first year like in business for you?
Oh my gosh. It was not what I expected, right? It was a huge reality check. One, even starting with the pricing. And maybe I also need to say that I was lucky or blessed in this regard because I joined the mentorship club the first month of my business.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I guess that also helped in terms of avoiding other mistakes that I could have done. But when it even came to my pricing, I was afraid to price properly, even though I knew that the value of the services that I'm providing and the pricing do not go hand in hand. But then I was afraid that because people don't know who Patricia is, people don't know who NPK is, maybe then let me just go extremely low. And I remember Haiti once in one of our sessions, she would say, guys, don't do that. Because one, you will not enjoy the work that you're doing because you know, right? Two, it will become harder for you to actually then increase your price when that time comes.
When the time comes
because people then now are used to this price and you can't now just increase it by 200%. You know, it makes sense to you, but does not make sense to your customers. So it was that. I learned that entrepreneurship is not glitter, especially at the foundation stage. You have to put in the work. It's not about I can wake up at 10 o'clock because it's my business. You have to work overtime. And the fact that even though I know the numbers and etc., that's the operational part.
Yes.
Now, as entrepreneurship, you have to do everything else. You have to do the marketing. You have to get clients. So there's the sales. You have to be the HR. Sorry. We'll call it the fountain water. You have to be HR. You have to be everything. And all of those things are things that I really didn't know, other than maybe having like certain knowledge through observing other businesses. So it was very interesting. And I think it exposed a lot of my own limiting beliefs that I didn't even know that I had.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Such as what? What type of limiting beliefs did you now come into contact with that you didn't realize you had?
I had no idea that I actually had issues with my self-esteem.
Really?
Yeah.
Sure. And that's the thing about business, is because it really brings you face to face with yourself.
Yes.
Yeah. And how would that then show up in your business?
The pricing, I would not share my business on my private social medias. Yeah. You would only see NPK information on NPK's page.
Yes.
On my WhatsApp statuses, I wouldn't post anything. If somebody asks me, what do you do? I'll just say, I do accounting and tax. I would not mention NPK anyway because I was not comfortable. And then I didn't feel that it's worthy enough to be mentioned. Right? So that's one thing that it really brought to the fore, that you have an issue with your self-esteem, that you need to work on that. Otherwise, the business is not going to grow.
Absolutely. And what did you need to do to then be able to overcome that?
Community. So that's one. I think just being exposed to different entrepreneurs on different stages, it makes you realize that one, I can actually do this. And secondly, I think just also experience with getting the rejections from different people in terms of clients when they say, no, we're not ready, etc. And being comfortable with that.
Yes.
And realizing that this actually has nothing to do with me as a person.
Yeah.
And prayer. So then last year, I started a date with God. I'll create like 12 o'clock every day. I have a date with God and I'd block it out.
Sure.
And then I'll just have a conversation. This is how I'm feeling. I had a meeting with this client. I'm afraid, and etc. and etc. And I guess God being God, then he started just removing certain things in me. And then now we're pitching in front of strangers.
Wow, that is so amazing. Tell us a little bit.
Yeah, how was
about
that experience?
that.
You said it was this past weekend or something.
Yes, that was nerve-wracking. So we went to the Sales and Entrepreneurship Summit. And along the way, they mentioned that, okay, fine, we're going to give some numbers, random numbers. Those who are interested in pitching, just pick the number. And once we're ready, we're going to randomly select the number. Whoever gets the number, then we'll pitch. So I'm like, okay, cool. Then there was this lady who, Bulelwa, who does coaching for communication. And she offered, if you want to actually pass by and just share your pitching, come forward. And I was like, you know what, I might as well. Even if they don't choose me, then at least I'll learn one or two things.
Yes.
And then secondly, back to the whole rejection thing. Now I'm not afraid of failing. Okay, so what if I fail? But at the end of the day, if I pitch, they'll all know that there was Patricia Khomane.
Exactly.
And she does accounting.
Yes.
NPK, yeah. So they did the selections. Every number that they selected, the person was not there.
Oh, wow. Jeez.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
Or the person refused to go up.
the person refused.
They were afraid.
Yes, yeah. And then they were like, okay, fine. We can't just be calling out numbers.
Mm.
Who would like to come?
Mm.
I raised my hand. In my head, I'm like, what are you doing? Put your hand down. And I went and then I pitched. But while I was doing that, my heart was pounding.
Must have been him.
Yeah. But once again, I've learned that you are your own fan.
Mm.
If you don't push your business, nobody will.
100%.
And you can't expect other people to be doing that for you, especially if you're not willing to do it for yourself.
100%.
So yeah, that's how we ended up there.
Wow.
Wow.
That's
Well done.
amazing.
Well done.
Thank you.
And how was the feeling? How did people respond to you?
The response was good.
Mm.
The response was good. And I think that was also a reaffirmation that if you try, you will actually might get what you're looking for. But if you don't try because you're afraid, then you lose out. Because even if I didn't win, I live with experience.
Yes.
And NPK is now also in people's heads.
Yes.
Yeah.
What is the importance, Patricia, of attending these events, networking with people, raising our hands in the room, even when we didn't wake up with a plan to do that, but an opportunity showed itself? What is the importance of us putting ourselves out there?
I'm a Jesus girl, so I'll answer that through the aspects of the Bible, right? When I think about the Bible from Genesis to Revelation, one or another, it talks about stewardship. If you think of Genesis, it talks as, okay, multiply, have dominion, and etc. Right? When you think of the New Testament, it literally says, bear much fruits. Or the talent principle where they were given different talents and they're expected to actually do something with that. So now when you go to those different events, you're spending your time, right? You have put in your money. How are you being a good steward with those two things? You are being a good steward if you show yourself, right? And also you implement the information that you have learned from it. I remember also while we were on one of the teachings that we had with you on the mentorship club, you mentioned that always go to the events prepared. Right? Make sure that have an agenda. Are you planning on asking questions? Then make sure that you ask questions. How are you going to make yourself seen? How are you going to make yourself known? Make sure that you network and etc. So I think it was now just, okay, I need to implement everything that I've learned, because it's pointless to say, okay, I had the mentorship club with Hetty. Yes, it sounds great because we'll be like, oh my gosh, Hetty. But how does that look like in my life?
In your life, yeah.
And so it's just implementing all those little things and you really see the change. And the other thing about being in those events is you're literally seeing other people who have passed your stage.
Yeah.
And that reminds you that it's possible, right? It is possible that you can also reach there. There aren't specific people that God said, no, only you can succeed.
It's available for
It's
all
available
of us.
for all of us. But what are you doing with that?
Yeah. That actually reminds me, the importance. I was going through this book and they were explaining how, the mind and the brain doesn't really know how to tell if what's put in front of it, whether it's real or not.
Yeah.
So now when you are in such an environment and you see this happening in front of you, it's giving a different vision into your brain. And where before you're thinking that it's not possible, the brain's like, no, but I've seen it. It's right there. What do you mean that it's not possible?
Yeah.
And it helps a lot as well. I'm actually wondering, okay, with the type of clients that you also work with, I'm sure over time, are there any interesting clients that you've experienced? You can give me two examples. One where, like you've looked and where you're able to assist, it's actually quite a bit too late.
Yeah.
And you think, hey man, you should have done this, but now we've just got to submit and you've done things really, really wrong.
Yeah.
And another type of client where, things have really gone right in terms of how they've worked with you. Do you have two of those type of examples?
I do. Can I give you three?
Yeah,
for it.
So I had an individual client who was not submitting their tax returns for 4 years, right? And as a result, so I started charging them administration penalties. When they came to me, it was because of the administration penalties and they kept accumulating. We submitted the tax returns and we applied for the remission for the penalties, meaning that we're asking for SARS to cancel the penalties.
Okay.
The amount of those penalties were about 45,000 rand on an individual. And SARS came back and they were like, we have cancelled everything apart from 250 rand. So I was like, no, 250 rand is fine. We can take that. So when I told her that, okay, fine, we've submitted all your returns, so you're now compliant. You don't have to pay the 45,000. You have to pay 250 rand. I remember her sending me a voice note crying, and she's like, I've not been sleeping, thinking, where am I going to get this money from?
Yeah,
I've been praying to God. Burden. Yeah. And now you're telling me that I can only pay 250 rand.
Wow.
So that was the scenario where everything is already done. You haven't been submitting your tax returns. I can't help you in terms of you being on time. But in this scenario, we can try our best to remove this burden from you. But obviously, going forward, make sure that just everything is done on time. All right. The second one would be a client that I got from the mentorship club.
Oh, wow. Look at that.
Yeah. We started working together, and she was just implementing everything.
Okay.
Right. And now she's got 2 branches, right?
Okay.
Yeah. And we had our first business strategy session where we looked at the budgeting and everything else. And her company is just growing.
Oh, nice.
It's beautiful to see and to be able to walk on the journey with her. All right. And I guess the last one would be another business where she also was not compliant, had not done her financials, did not submit anything to SARS. SARS was now like knocking on her door, and she was now terrified. Her end goal was, I'm going to deregister this company because it's too much.
Goodness.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was like, no, fam, let's fix this, then you can decide. Right. So we fixed it. We managed fixing it without her paying any penalties as well.
Oh, wow.
And she's now in business. Now she's even VAT registered.
Oh, wow. Look at that.
Yeah.
Well, she's doing.
Yeah. And she's so excited. She's like, oh my gosh, Patricia, I think we need to do this now. I need to find more clients. I'm like, look at you.
That is amazing.
Yeah. So it's a very interesting journey.
Yeah.
And I think to just go back to when I was a kid, I wanted to be a doctor because I wanted to help people. I don't think most of us realize that entrepreneurship is literally the same thing. You are actually helping people. It's just that God calls us in different ways for us to actually do that.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. You work with a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners.
Yeah.
What are some of the mistakes that we make when it comes to our books?
Not separating your personal and business. All right. You would see on the bank statement there are personal transactions. So that's one. The second thing would be that you might find that there are certain expenses that the business is making, but the entrepreneur or the director, they're swiping it through their personal bank account. And because they're minor things, they forget about it. So now when you come to us and you want to prepare financial statements and etc., you're only giving us bank statements. You have completely forgotten that there's those expenses.
Yes.
Right? And now you might find that your profit is higher than what it was.
Yeah.
So now you're actually paying more taxes than what you should. Right? And the other one, I think, which is major, is not having an accounting system. Because with the accounting system, you are recording everything as it goes, right, on a monthly basis. But if you come to me to prepare financial statements with just a bank statement, it's not a true reflection of what's happening in your business. Because the bank just literally talks about the cash flow, money coming in, money going out. You might have customers who have not paid you yet.
True.
But because it's not reflecting on your bank statement, I'm not going to show that on the bank, on the financial statements. Yes. So now your income is understated, right? You might find that once again, the suppliers that you haven't paid and the bank statement will not show that. So now you've got expenses that are not reflecting in your bank statement. Okay. So it's just things like that that actually affects the last number. And once again, if you're forgetting those expenses, and now I tell you made a profit of 50,000, you get excited. But in reality, you actually haven't made a profit of 50,000 because there are those expenses that you haven't recorded. Yeah. So I would say it's that. But the main thing would be not separating the personal transactions with the business transactions, and also not allocating salary to yourself. And which is granted. I get that sometimes, when the business is not stable, you might not have a specific fixed salary, but just have the mindset of I actually need to pay myself a certain amount of salary than just deducting the money from your bank account. Because you might find that at the end, when you've accumulated your salary, your company was supposed to register as an employee's tax, right? But then you didn't. So now you're not compliant in that element, and just keeping track of your funds as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, definitely. Those are such good pointers. And I think those are easy mistakes that a lot of entrepreneurs make in the beginning.
I actually wanted to check as well, something that often I wonder in my mind, because I'll hear sometimes TikTok or different books, that it's always important to go into business because then you can find legal ways to reduce like your tax liability and that type of stuff. Does that also happen in South Africa? And the clients that you work with, are there easy ways that they're also able to help themselves?
Yes.
Okay.
So the thing about tax, right? Within the act itself, there's a lot of tax benefits.
Okay.
Right. So I'll give you an example. You might find the normal incorporated tax rate is 27%.
Okay.
If your company falls under the small business corporation and you made profit of 95,000 rand, you don't have to pay taxes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, right. So now you've saved on that. And there's also different brackets from 7% to 27%. You no longer just fall within the fixed rate of 27%, but you'd have to know that my business actually qualifies for small business corporation.
Okay.
Then you've got the individual who's now wearing two hats, right? Because usually when it's a small business, the director is the shareholder, right? So you're now wearing two hats. And because you're wearing two hats, there's two ways that you can actually get money from the business. You can get money as dividends because you're the shareholder. You can get money as salary because you are the director.
Okay.
So one can then actually look at and say, okay, fine. When you add this amount together, how much taxes would you actually pay?
Okay.
Right? So is it better for us to say you actually need to get dividends because then it reduces the taxes that you're paying in your personal capacity?
Okay.
But at the same time, you also need to look at how does that affect the business, right? Because dividends is not an expense. So then it does not reduce your tax, your profit, right?
Yes.
So you need to literally look at the numbers and play and see how is this beneficial. It might be beneficial for you, your business, but it might not be beneficial for her business.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's interesting because, especially when we were all like employed and so on, you always see these different business people, and then people tell you, no, they drive this car because it's good for tax, or they live like this because it's good for tax. Then when you're sitting as an employed person, you're thinking, what are they talking about? Because we don't know what's going on here. But it's always good to know that there's somebody like yourself, an MPK, able to hold the hand of the different entrepreneurs, to be able to guide them to make sure you do actually what's required. Because we've come to learn since that the tax laws, it's also basically the government communicating what they want you to do.
Yes.
So if you're getting a tax benefit somewhere, it means that you're doing something the government wants help with.
Yeah.
That's how I've gotten to understand it. So that's actually quite good that you're able to assist with that.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. Gosh, thank you so much for that. It's been so interesting just to kind of learn a little bit more about your space and just some of the mistakes that we make as well as entrepreneurs. Given the fact that you are a business that provides a service, but you're also running your own business as well, what is some of the advice that you would give to the entrepreneurs that are watching from them building their business perspective?
For one, don't be afraid of numbers. You actually need to make those numbers your friend. Actually need to make those numbers your spouse, right? I usually just jokingly say, when you create a business, you are entering into a covenant.
Yeah.
Right? You are, maybe it's a polygamy because you've got CIPC and SARS on the side, right? But it's a covenant, and as long as each person plays a role, then it allows your business to grow. So don't be afraid of the numbers. I know they can be overwhelming, but they also empower you.
Yes.
Right? They empower you in knowing what exactly is happening in your business, where exactly do you need to improve. So I would say that's one. And then the second thing, which might not necessarily be related to the services that I provide, get a community. You can't do this alone. You cannot do this alone. God is in 3 in 1, right? God the Father, God the Son, God the Spirit. So even God in his form as God, it's a community, right? And as great as God is himself, the things that he does is to sort of like giving us an example of how we need to live our lives. So if he, God, who doesn't need a community, is within a community, what about us, right? You are born in a family because you need a community. You've got friends around you, you need a community. It's the same thing with entrepreneurship. You need a community. Get into things like the mentorship club, go to events, find or create something for yourself, but either way, then get the community. Yeah,
absolutely. I
and
love that.
also, I guess the last thing would be be compliant, because non-compliance is costly. So just also do yourself a favor in that regard.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I love that. Papa Biz, what have been your big takeaways from today's conversation?
I think just going through your story, one thing that sat with me is just the power of the spoken word.
Yeah.
Because that first boss that you had,
Yeah.
you weren't so sure, but you're saying, I'd like to, I have my own company.
Yeah.
And then now that they guided and they said, 5 years, study the CEO and myself as well as the CFO. And, just after that 5 years, you're running your own business, and just goes to show how, the word becomes flesh.
Yeah.
So that's something that I've seen in your journey, and something that we can all be able to put into practice in our own lives, so that can also come into fruition.
Absolutely. Patricia, if somebody's watching this and they're thinking, gosh, I do need to be compliant, maybe I haven't been filing my returns as I should have, and I just need a little bit of help just to put and balance things together, how do they get in touch with yourself at NPK Consultancy?
Okay. So we are on all social media platforms as NPK Consultancy. And then they can also contact us via our email address, which is info@npkconsultancy.co.za. Or they can call us on 011 702 8140.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much, Patricia. I think I've thoroughly enjoyed this. And I think for me, my biggest takeaway is just remembering those basics, separating your business and your personal account, being aware of your different transactions, the fact that your bank statement is not always going to show all of your expenses, especially if you're doing some on your personal side. It's not going to show some of the monies that you're still waiting to come in. So maybe having some form of an accounting software that's tracking is very, very good, and making sure you're compliant, because non-compliance is expensive. So your words have landed. They've landed very well on me. Thank you so much. Monetizers, that brings us to the end of yet another incredible podcast conversation. Today we were chatting to Patricia Khomane, and she has really shared with us how to become compliant within our businesses. Her story is very, very inspirational, and share with us what part of this conversation resonated with you the most. Do not forget to plug into our Monetize Your Business ecosystems. Make sure that you're following us on all social media platforms, and you're plugging into our physical workshops as well. Until our next podcast conversation,